Well, thank you guys for being here. Have you guys been having a good conference? Yes? It's been fun, but it's at the end, and so everybody's a little bit tired now. But this is going to be an interactive class. And did everybody get a sheet? And everybody got a pen? All right. Well, before we get going with the class, I have to, because it's me. I'm a certified radiology administrator, which is a certification you can take to validate your skills as a radiology leader. And if that's something you're not and something you're interested in doing, let me know, and I have a challenge coin for you. Is that anybody in this room? Giving away a lot of challenge coins this weekend, so I've hit a lot of people. Let me know if that's something you're interested in. We can talk more about it later. But just a little bit about me. Obviously, I was doing the blonde thing for a while. Changed it up. Haven't updated my headshot yet, but that's okay. I've actually been a tech for over 28 years, registered in radiography, mammography, quality management, and breast sono. I am a CRA and a fellow with AHRA, and I highly recommend AHRA as an organization that will help develop you as a leader, particularly if you're an engaged member. I have helped develop and implement navigation programs for a couple of large organizations in DFW, and I currently manage 2 multimodality ambulatory imaging clinics for an academic hospital system in Dallas-Fort Worth. I'm a boy mom, and I'm really proud to tell people that one of my kiddos followed me into imaging and is an MRI tech at my same organization, UT Southwestern. Not the same physical location, but same organization. Recently, this just happened like a couple weeks ago. Someone was asking him, did your mom inspire you to go into the field? And he was like, oh yeah, absolutely. It was probably just a quick and passing, question, but I was like, oh, I'm gonna hold on to those words forever. I have no conflicts of interest to disclose. So what we're gonna be talking about today is staying inspired in a workforce that's tired. I think we can all agree that we're tired and our workforce is tired. We're gonna talk a lot about why our workforce is tired. So we're gonna understand the difference between burnout and compassion fatigue. And a lot of people have never even heard of what compassion fatigue is. We're gonna talk about that. Understand how incivility and workplace violence negatively impact productivity and the healthcare workers' mental health and well-being, and understand the importance of having a personal vision and mission and value statement, and be able to write your own vision and mission statement. So we're going to kind of walk through some of that. So let's just talk about why we're tired. So and whether you're in biomedical engineering, whether you're a technologist, whether you're in leadership, we're kind of all suffering some of the same things. But if you're leading a group of technologists experience stress and burnout. It happens for many reasons, including inconsistent management, inefficient communication, conflicting demands, long work hours, excessive workloads, lack of work breaks, time pressures, and inefficient equipment or technology. And workplace violence is more prevalent in healthcare settings. Now, just to ask you guys, are any of you guys like 100% fully staffed? 1, 2, 3, well, actually more than I expected. Does everybody have 100% up-to-date equipment, nothing that's needing replacement? Your equipment's super efficient? Yeah, nobody's shaking their heads because we need money for that. So these are a lot of the things that are adding to our workplace fatigue, not having enough technologists, not having all the equipment that we need. And then I have to bring up compassion fatigue, and a lot of people don't talk about compassion fatigue, but if you've worked in healthcare for any amount of time, you probably are suffering or have suffered at some point from compassion fatigue. And it's because of providing care in stressful situations over long periods of time. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. And then healthcare workers often experience incivility in the workplace and workplace violence due to high pressure and high stakes environment Have any of you guys been to one of the incivility classes I've taught here, either at ICE or at AHRA? I know Greg and Jose have. It's one of those topics that's really important to me for many reasons, which we'll dive into. But it is definitely having that uncivil culture in your work will add to stress and burnout. So just to ask, is the healthcare environment that you work in today, is it the same one that you entered in when you began your career? I started my career, in 1998 as a baby brand new tech, and I can tell you everything is different. Everything is different. But is it the same for you? And what about 10 years ago? And what about before and after the pandemic? Because I feel like the pandemic has not just changed healthcare, it's changed everything. It's changed Starbucks hours forever, right? It's changed no more 24-hour Walmart. It's changed how we do meetings. It's made remote work more acceptable, but it has changed a lot of things. And I'm going to show you how it's impacted healthcare in a lot of ways that we haven't bounced back from. And is it fair to say that everything has changed except for the fact that our patients continue to need care? That's really the only thing that hasn't changed. We're going to continue to have patients that need care. That's the one thing that's never going to change. So, and I'm a dry mouth person, so I have to take lots of sips, pardon me. So let's talk about burnout. So burnout is a physiological response to chronic workplace stress characterized by a high degree of emotional exhaustion and depersonalization or cynicism, and a low sense of personal accomplishment at work. So you can, when you think about like the characterization of emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, especially depersonalization and cynicism, you probably know who those people are. They feel negative all the time. They're cynical all the time about the work that they do. A study by the CDC comparing healthcare workers' perceptions from 2018 to 2022 showed that more than double the number of healthcare workers reported harassment at work in 2022 than in 2018. And that's really interesting because employees who experience harassment are twice as likely to report feelings of burnout. So we'll talk about that a little more as well. Hi, it's okay that you're late. We won't put you on the spot or anything. No. I just want to make sure you get a worksheet here and a pen. So nearly half of healthcare workers reported often feeling burned out in 2022, up from 32% in 2018. Nearly half of healthcare workers intended to look for a new job, up from 33% in 2018. And healthcare workers reported more mental health days than any other kind of worker. Now, I'm sure you guys are thinking mental health days. Well, come on, let's be honest. Who hasn't? Has anybody taken a mental health day? Mario, come on, man. This guy, he's so great. It happens. It happens because of emotional, burnout and that exhaustion. But the real thing is that healthcare workers are reporting more mental health days than other workforces. And a decreased trust in leadership and a decrease in production. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more too, because sometimes we have areas in our work where people are purposely decreasing their work, their production, their attention to their job. And that's something called quiet quitting. So health workers reported fewer mental health issues when they said they work in supportive environments. Factors that make more workplaces more supportive include participation in workplace decisions, management and workforce supervisors that promote stress prevention, psychological health, support for productivity, a harassment-free workplace, and enough time to complete tasks. And sometimes leaders don't have necessarily a realistic grasp on how much time it actually takes to complete a task. Sometimes as a leader, we have to step back put on some scrubs and get back in there and actually do some patience or watch workflow so we can really see what's going on, and our teams respect us more when we do it. So I want to talk about workplace incivility, and since most of you guys haven't been to that lecture I did, then it won't sound redundant to you, but workplace incivility is a really, really big deal. It's a type of low intensity, discourteous behavior that violates workplace norms and disregards others. Behavior is subjective, so what is acceptable to one person may be uncivil to another. Some examples of uncivil behavior include ignoring emails, calls, or verbal cues from someone, publicly criticizing someone's ideas, withholding information, and withholding information seems to be something that we see a lot in healthcare, using condescending verbal and or body language, and interrupting. Interrupting is really hard, I think, sometimes for people who have a lot of energy, or they're, maybe ADD, because people with that kind of divergent brain, we're always thinking about the next thing to say. So you really have to train your brain to listen instead of listening to respond. And it takes a lot of work. I'm still working on it. But it can also be very demanding to employees. It can look like people being demanding. Productivity and company culture. Employees who experience incivility, they may feel demoralized, stressed, and less motivated. And this can lead to decreased productivity, higher turnover rates, and toxic work culture. Now, I started doing a lot of research about incivility in the workplace several years ago, because I realized you can work for the most amazing organization, have a fantastic pension, have your health insurance paid for, but if you are working in a situation where you feel like you're not respected, your ideas don't matter, and then you maybe have something added to that, like an uncivil relationship with someone, whether it be your boss or someone else that's adding that tension, it can really set you over the edge. And I've seen a lot of people leave really good organizations where they had a lot of great things going on, but maybe they were dealing with an uncivil boss. And all it takes is really that interaction where that boss makes you feel belittled or not valued. And then what happens? You're on Indeed or you're on Glassdoor and you're looking for something else. And even if that's a fleeting moment, you don't stay in that moment. Just the fact that you got to that moment says so much about what's going on. To combat incivility in the workplace, leaders need to be a model of civility by being respectful in all your actions. Leaders should teach civility, create a culture of psychological safety by normalizing mistakes and focusing on process instead of people when mistakes happen. If any of you guys have gone through like high reliability organization training, then they may have shown you or given you a just culture algorithm to help you when things happen that we didn't want this to happen. And what that does is it really allows you to focus on process, not person. When we all went into healthcare, not so we can make mistakes and hurt people or bad things can happen, but sometimes bad things do happen. So if we go through the safe choices algorithm or the just culture algorithm, it could be called either. It's really going to look at, okay, here's what happened. Was there a policy in place? Yes or no? Did this person intend to hurt or cause harm? Yes or no? And you follow this whole algorithm, and what it usually results in is a process change, not a person change, not a person humiliation, but a deeper look at your process. That's not to say that there aren't people out there that need, sometimes that, documented counseling or that written warning or something like that. And sometimes if the confidence isn't there, then that may be a person that has to be worked out of the system. But if we're attacking every single error and not looking at the process. We're just focusing on the person. We are not creating psychological safety. While I can't endorse any products or services, I can tell you that Amy Edmondson has written a fabulous book about psychological safety called The Fearless Organization. I highly recommend it. But just a brief synopsis there, a poll of 800 managers and employees in 17 different industries showed that 48% of people intentionally decreased their work effort when they felt that they were suffering from incivility in the workplace. 47% intentionally decreased the time they spent at work. 38% intentionally decreased the quality of their work, and 80% lost time just ruminating about the incident. So I don't know if this has ever happened to you where maybe you were treated with some condescension or disrespect. Are you productive for the rest of the day, or are you kind of toast? I think if we're honest, most of us would admit, yeah, I'm not going to be very effective for the rest of the day. It's really hard to recover from someone treating you with, rude and condescension and degradation, especially if that person is in a position that's over you. That's really, really tough. It's hard to rebound from that and get your focus back and just get right back to work. And for some people, they reach a point where they're just like, I'm done. I'm going to come to work and I'm going to do the absolute bare minimum I have to do every day to get by, stay under the radar. I will clock in at this time, clock out at that time. I will do what I have to do, and that's it. Nothing more, nothing less. And that's quiet quitting. And that's what people do when they don't feel valued. 63% lost time at work avoiding the offender. 66% said that their performance declined. 78% said that their commitment to the organization declined. They're scrolling on Indeed because someone was disrespectful, or you can only take so much. 12% said that they left their job because of uncivil treatment, and 25% admitted to taking their frustration out on customers. So this is where so when we think about incivility in the workplace, what we don't sometimes understand is that it's costing our organizations a lot of money. If we're being uncivil or other people are being uncivil, we're ruminating, we're not as productive. We've got people that are on the clock, but guess what they're doing on the clock? They're scrolling on Indeed or Glassdoor because they feel disrespected and they don't feel valued. And it can be really critical in healthcare. Last year at AHRA, John Beal, a colleague of mine, and I presented on incivility in the workplace and how to change the culture. And we played an audio that I got off TikTok where a surgeon was in the OR with a patient on the table, asleep, doing some kind of orthopedic surgery, and he was completely ranting. You guys can probably find this on TikTok. Completely ranting at this nurse, calling her stupid, the B word, pretty much every bad thing you could say about another human being, telling her she was too stupid to know how to operate the suction. And he was doing life-saving, world-changing surgery, and she's just so dumb. Would you want to be that patient in that room? You're asleep, maybe you don't hear it, but if there was anything that just didn't seem right, would you, if you were working in that room, feel safe to go, hey, I feel uncomfortable. I'm speaking up for safety. I'm concerned. That's like it's a cuss. I'm concerned, I'm uncomfortable, I'm speaking up for safety. Would you feel safe to do that if you were in that OR room with that doctor screaming and yelling and calling a nurse a B and all these things? You'd probably just go, yeah, that doesn't look right, but I'm not saying anything. And this is exactly how people die. Compassion fatigue. So compassion fatigue is a term that describes the physical, emotional, and psychological impact of working day in and day out with other people's trauma. Compassion fatigue is often mistaken for burnout, but we can get burned out in any industry, right? My husband directs television. I love him. He gets burned out, but he doesn't have compassion fatigue because he doesn't have to take care of other human beings and tell them that they have cancer and things like that. And I'm not trying to throw shade at him. He's amazing. But different careers are going to experience compassion fatigue depending on what you're doing. But it can often be mistaken for burnout, which is a cumulative sense of fatigue or dissatisfaction. But compassion fatigue signs might include mood swings, detachment, addiction, anxiety, depression, trouble being productive, and insomnia. And I really started thinking a lot about compassion fatigue a few years ago when we were really kind of breaking down some of this material and how it impacts people. How many of you guys, I just had one of my MRI techs on last Thursday, the patient on his table started having a seizure, and it was a really bad seizure. It was outpatient the whole time. It was very traumatic for the techs. And this, if you guys have ever seen someone have a seizure, it's pretty scary. It's pretty scary. And my main MRI tech, he was watching this person seize. They could never get her under control. She left on a stretcher with EMS, still seizing. So I called to talk to him, see how he was doing, just to make sure, because it's traumatizing to go through these things, to watch these things. And he said his daughter actually has febrile seizures. So every time she gets a fever, she has a seizure. So it was very traumatic for him to see this. And it, you know, the whole time she's seizing, he's thinking about his daughter. And but I'm saying this because we as healthcare workers, we're dealing with a whole different ball of wax than say maybe somebody that's you know, working in a different industry. We all have our gifts that we bring to the world, but there is something special about what we're doing with taking care of people. Sometimes you see people in the ER, and it's kind of like, you know, you'll see someone, and I worked in the ER for a long time when I was younger. They'll bring a person in, and maybe they're a gunshot wound to the chest, and it's gore, and it's, you know, and then 3 or 4 minutes later, after kind of it clears out, maybe patient's taking a surgery or whatever, everybody's kind of cleaning up the mess. It's like, oh, I got the munchies. Anybody hungry? Anybody want to go up for a Starbucks run? And it sounds almost like, well, did you not just experience this thing that we all just experienced? Yeah, but we get desensitized, and that's part of compassion fatigue. So recognizing compassion fatigue, you know, cognizant of the symptoms, it's just important to go ahead and recognize when that's how to get help if you need it, and use resources that are available to you through your organization. The main thing about compassion fatigue is that crucially, it disconnects the person, the caregiver, from the patients, making them unable to be empathetic and also to provide compassionate care. Compassion fatigue and burnout also occur when healthcare workers are not valued. So you see how this is compiling on each other. So in our healthcare environment, sometimes we have incivility, sometimes we have burnout, sometimes we have compassion fatigue, and now it's all kind of rolling in on each other. And then what do we get as well? We get workplace violence. Workplace violence is any act or threat of physical violence, harassment, intimidation, or other threatening disruptive behavior that can occur at the work site. It affects and involves workers, clients, customers, and visitors, and verbal to physical thoughts and worse. And this is what's interesting. While healthcare workers make up 10% of the entire workforce, they experience 48% of non-fatal injuries due to workplace violence. Wow, we're actually pretty special. We're going through some things here that other industries are not going through. My daughter-in-law is a nurse. She's been a nurse for 10 years. Well, no, she's been a nurse for 5. They've been married for 10. But she's literally been physically assaulted because she works on a unit where patients often, they've had strokes and things. So even if it's unintentional, like, you know, if the patient doesn't have the wherewithal, but they're throwing punches. So physical violence can happen for many, many reasons. But verbal abuse, sometimes that happens too, and it's not like it's any easier. I had a patient tell me one time that she hoped I got breast cancer. I hope you get breast cancer one day. Is that workplace violence? I think it is. I think it is. We need to make sure our employees have tools in our electronic medical record where they can put behavioral flags for patients that are unkind to our team. I absolutely will not tolerate an unkind patient that's being threatening. I will absolutely call security and say, let's go. You're going to be respectful, or we can't take care of you today. My employees need to feel safe. So there's a couple different types of workplace violence. There's criminal. That's where the perpetrator doesn't have a relationship with the target. Client to patient, worker. Lateral violence, worker to worker, and domestic violence. That may be a partner that injures somebody at the workplace. And I've seen all of these. Behaviors can include verbal abuse and threats, physical abuse, harassment and intimidation, property damage, vandalism, and aggression. So I just want to ask any of you guys, have you guys ever felt in your job over the course of your years in imaging, have you ever been treated with unkindness that would raise to the level of workplace violence? If you have had something happen like that to you, raise your hand. Okay. And if you would say, yes, I have suffered from incivility in the workplace, either directly or indirectly. Let me see that hand also. Yeah. And if you would say, I totally get what you mean when you say burnout and excuse me, the difference between burnout and compassion fatigue, because I have felt compassion fatigued at times too. Let me know. I just want to know if we're all together on this. So workplace violence and workplace injuries. According to a 2023 CDC vital signs report, more than double the number of healthcare workers reported harassment in 2022 than 2018. What has happened? The pandemic has made it where people are more aggressive. Healthcare workers are suffering more harassment. We're being talked to more aggressively. And we have a situation, and we can't even go to Target at 12 at night anymore. It's crazy. But the Joint Commission recognized that we have a big problem. So when they step up and say, we got to do something, you know that they mean business. So they revised its workplace prevention program standard by clarifying what workplace violence, that employers have a workplace violence prevention program, training on workplace violence and how to report it. And you must meet those Joint Commission standards and have a flag, have a way to create a flag in the EMR so you can mark those patients that have exhibited workplace violence. And then workplace injuries. And we do have to talk about that because we are doing a lot of things that are physical with our bodies. I haven't done some of the more physical things in a while, but gosh, as a tech, I was, transporting patients and bringing them over onto the CT table with a backboard and moving them off and all kinds of things. Ergonomically with sonography, you really sonographers get a lot of shoulder and injuries. It's crazy. But workplace injuries encompass any injury or illness that a worker experiences while on the job. Fatalities included in the US, 5,283 fatal work injuries were recorded. That's not necessarily specific to healthcare, that's just workplace injuries. But the bottom line is healthcare workers experience higher rates of injuries and illness than other employees in other industries. So common workplace injuries for healthcare workers are overexhaustion, exertion of muscles, needle sticks and sharps, workplace violence, slips, trips and falls, infections, and chemical exposure. So, and if you don't want to answer this, you don't have to, but how many of you guys would say, yes, I have hurt myself a little bit at some point in my career? I have hurt myself taking care of patients. Yeah. Or I've had a needle stick. I've had a needle stick. Or I haven't slipped. I almost slipped yesterday and fell off the stage, but that's okay. I'm a clumsy person. I can't blame that on my work. But if I did fall at work, that would be classified as a workplace injury. But workplace violence, you know, those nasty comments, the threats, all of those things. So you see how this is all just building up, all of it. So I really started thinking about, okay, now we're back to the ER. You've got this person that's coming in on a stretcher, and I don't know about you guys, but I became a technologist when I graduated from my program when I was 20, and I got registered at 21. My first job was at Baylor in Dallas, big Baylor in Dallas. And one of the first, pretty short, early on in my career, working in the ER on nights, is a person came in with two people had been brought in, a child and a grandmother, because they had been in a fire because they had one of those doors that locks on the inside and the key was nowhere to be found when this fire started. And the grandmother had burns all over her body, everywhere. But the child just had burns on his hands and feet because the grandmother covered him like this, and he died, of course, of smoke inhalation. But they worked on this kid forever. And being on the trauma team, we were all there waiting to see what the direction was. And I was 21, and it was really, really traumatizing, but not as traumatizing as when a baby was brought in. It wasn't a very healthy baby, but the baby had passed, and they worked on this baby forever and ever. And the cry, it was the cry that the mom let out, and it just was so piercing. I just had to go to the bathroom and be by myself for a little while and cry myself because it was traumatic. I felt her pain and it hurt me too. But what we have to understand is, guess what, guys? We've probably seen some things that were traumatic. It's okay to recognize that we've probably seen some things that were a little traumatic to us. The prevalence of PTSD in healthcare workers is significantly higher than the general population due to the occupational stressors that are risk factors for the condition. PTSD symptoms make it very challenging for frontline healthcare workers to do their job. Some of the consequences of PTSD in healthcare professionals include depression and anxiety, emotional numbing and avoidance. And you know, there's lots of behaviors that people do when they're emotionally numbing. Sleep disturbances, excessive alcohol use, suicidal ideation, chronic pain, and opioid dependence. And it can impact individual health, work performance, and staff retention. Organizations should take measures to support employees, like having access to mental health programs, ensuring appropriate staff resources and PPE, and just a program like UT Southwestern has a program called Nomad. So if you have something traumatic that happens, you can refer your employees to go through that program to help them deal with that stress, which is a good thing. And suicide in healthcare workers. So I feel like I have to talk about this. It's important. According to the National Institute of Health, the risk of suicide is higher for healthcare workers compared to non-healthcare workers. My brother-in-law, about 7 years ago, he was a respiratory therapist and a nurse, and he committed suicide. And I really just felt like this was all as a result of, he did have clinical depression, and he also was alcoholic. But it wasn't till several years later, maybe it was more than 6 years that this happened. It wasn't until several years later that I really started thinking about all the years that he worked in the emergency room, all the years that he went through all these things that I'm talking about, because he worked in healthcare his entire life, and what impact that had on him, what impact that had on his, if it impacted depression, if it impacted his numbing skills, or not skills, but what he was doing to numb out that pain. But a study by the National Institute of Health in 2022 showed that 1/5 of healthcare workers drank hazardous levels of alcohol during the pandemic. And a 2024 study showed that it hasn't decreased post-pandemic. What's scary is 1/3 of all suicides involve alcohol. An adult alcoholic is 120 times more likely to commit suicide than a non-alcoholic adult. And there's a whole lot of things that go into that. And that wrist, that's my wrist. And I got this tattoo several years ago for several reasons. My dad also committed suicide when I was 10, and he suffered with chronic pain, and he suffered with depression, and he suffered with dependence issues, which are a result of chronic pain. And then this happened with my brother-in-law, and it deeply affected me. And then our AHRA community lost someone very important to us as well several years ago. And that's when I decided to get the tattoo. If you don't know what the tattoo is, the ellipsis, it means that your story continues. It's not over. There's no right or wrong rules, but usually if you get the semicolon facing out, it's in support of other people who may be struggling. And if you get it facing in towards you, it's to remind yourself that your story continues. I'm not necessarily a big tattoo person, but this one was really important to me, and I'm really glad that I did it. And all my sons went and got it with me. So how do we reconnect to our purpose? We're burnt out. We have compassion fatigue. We suffer workplace violence. We have incivility in the workplace. We are dealing with a lot. And we're going to go ahead and acknowledge that our industry is different than other industries. So let's start thinking about why we chose healthcare in the first place. What did you feel like when you first started in the field? What do you still like about it now? What do you enjoy the most? While you reflect on where you are currently at in your career, I want us to do an exercise about stop, start, and continue. Okay. So there are things that we can do. I put some of my things up here. So, and things that we should be doing. This is where you get your little paper. I'm not anything, trust me. This is your paper, this is your private. But there are probably things in your workplace that you could stop. For me, not doing, and I continue to work on this, is assuming bad intentions. Sometimes I get an email, maybe from a certain person, and I think this is what they're thinking, or this is the place where that's coming from. Well, how do I know? I'm assuming. What if I could assume good intentions instead? That's a choice, to choose to assume good intentions instead of bad intentions. Competing with others, competing with other people in my organization that are, in my same role, worrying about what others are doing, worrying about how this center staffed versus how my center staffed. There's a lot of this. This is me being as transparent as I can. There are things that I know that I have to work on. These are things I need to stop doing. Some things that I needed to start doing is assuming good intentions. That one's really hard, and it takes practice. Everything you get, look at it through the lens of this is coming from a good place. That's hard. Taking brief mental breaks, that's something I need to do, and sometimes it's just going and being quiet for a few minutes or shutting the door. And this one, thinking and reflecting before I speak. And that one's really hard for me because I'm usually pretty quick to respond, but sometimes that'll get you in a lot of trouble. So for me, I need to think a little bit more, and sometimes just a good pause and a breath. Your breath should be your first word if you're responding, particularly if you're responding to something that's a challenge for you. Let your breath be your first word. And what I needed to continue to do is relying on my professional mentor. I think that's something, if you know you need one, get one if you don't have one. Professional mentors are amazing. I have a professional mentor. I've mentored others, and I've had mentors for me, and I think it's an amazing thing to have. Affirming and praising my team for a job well done. Utilizing our organization's reward and recognition program. Connect individual team members to the organization's mission and vision, and my own. There's what you're amazing at, and you need to continue. So I'm just going to give you just like 2 minutes just to think about that a little more, or 1 minute or 2. What do you need to stop? What do you need to start? And what do you need to continue? So connecting individual team members to the organization's mission, vision, and my own vision. Have you ever noticed that whoever's usually the strongest personality, they'll be the one to cast the vision, even if they're not the leader? Have you seen that happen? Whoever's the strongest, they'll try to cast their vision for your team, for your. But here's a question. How many of you guys know your organization's mission and vision? A couple of you? So I think we all, if you're a leader, you probably have your own vision and mission as well. And then the question is, does your vision and mission align with your organization's vision and mission? That's a question that you have to look at and examine. So certainly you guys can continue working on the stop, start, continue, and take that home, look at that some more. I was just being as transparent as I can be with my stop, start, and continue. I hope it's helpful. I have this little thing in my office. It's just a little plaque. And I always tell people when they come to me with, concerns or problems, we need to focus on what's in our sphere of control. There are some things we cannot control. We know that. So let's not focus on the things we can't control. Let's focus on the things that are in our sphere of control. So we can control how we respond to situations. We can control our own attitudes, our boundaries, how we express ourselves, asking for help. We cannot control other people, how they talk, what they do. If they report to us, we can mentor them, we can guide them, we can lead them, and we should. But bottom line, can we control other people? No, we can't. But we can control ourselves and how we respond to everything. So I think that's important. So I work for UT Southwestern. Our vision is to provide the very best care possible to all those who come to us for help, and to do so while training the next generation of caregivers and conducting research that addresses some of the challenges in medical science. That's why if you were there yesterday for the Diamond Award, that's why they talked about me having a personal connection with UT Southwestern, because they, through clinical trials and research, they saved my mom's life about 6 years ago. Their mission is promoting health and human potential through education, discovery, and healing. That's UT Southwestern's mission. You guys have a mission and a vision at your organization. So if you don't know what it is, I definitely encourage you to find out what it is. But then here's a question. What's your vision and what's your mission? Have you ever thought about that? So I started working on that a bit ago, and it's a really good way for you to clarify, why am I here? What am I doing? So a personal mission statement is a powerful tool that can help you stay focused on your goals, passions, guiding you through life's decisions and challenges. And there's a template, and I put the template there. I will, what do you want to do? For, who do you want to do it for? To achieve a specific desired result. So if you know me and you've been around me at all, you probably already know what my vision is and what my mission is, because I'm pretty passionate about some of the things. But my mission is to share my passion for breast imaging navigation with as many people as possible by teaching whenever I have the opportunity. That's one. And to combat the epidemic of incivility in the workplace by educating others and creating a culture of psychological safety where team members feel safe to bring their authentic selves to work every day. I want my team members to come to work and feel safe and be their real selves. And I want to come to work and I want to be my real self every day, not some weird version that I'm presenting. I want to be authentic. I want my team to be authentic. So that is my action. That's my audience. Those are the skills, and that's my result that I'm hoping for. So just want to give you guys an opportunity to work on your vision, and it may be something you have to work out a little bit, but what do you want to do? Who do you want to do it for? What's it going to take? And what result are you going to get? One more. And our vision. Now, a personal vision statement is a summary of your career goals and key attributes. Some people might put some personal things in it, some people may not. You may also see such statements referred to as a career mission or career vision, but it can also have personal things in it. Your vision statement is where you want to be now and how you want to be seen and what you want to achieve. So how do I want to be seen? And it may include your short-term goals, your values, your interests, your skills, how you hope to make a difference, personal and professional stuff in it. But my vision is to be a respected leader within my organization at UT Southwestern, and to be a reputable educator within the imaging field, to be a sought-after mentor and a trusted friend, to be a treasured mother and adored wife, to be a generous human being and a better person today than I was yesterday. And let my vision be clear by my actions. I hope that my actions every day demonstrate my vision, because this is why having a vision is so important. I want to stay focused on this vision. All my actions should be guiding this vision. Everything I do should be in congruence with this vision. What do I want to be? How do I want others to see me? Well, I want my organization to respect me. I want to be a respected person in imaging overall. I want my kids to adore me, of course. I want my husband to think that I'm the best wife ever. I want to be generous. I want to find ways to be generous every day. I want to look for opportunities to help people. And I want to be better today than I was yesterday, on purpose. So if you haven't, I want you to take this with you and really think about, what is your vision and what is your mission? And really clarify your own goals. So and I wanted to play a video, but it wouldn't do it. It's being frustrated. So have you felt burned out, and have you suffered from some compassion fatigue? Have you been in violence, and have you suffered from incivility? Were you able to reflect on some of the things that brought you to healthcare in the first place? I got into healthcare because I wanted to help people. When my son came to me, he had gone to college, he had gotten just like a basic degree, but he didn't have any skills. And he said, Mom, I think I want to go into imaging, either MRI or ultrasound, I'm not sure. He was 22 at the time. And I said, if that's what you want, son, that's okay. I'll point you in the right direction to get the education and the training. But here's the deal. Are you willing to take care of other human beings every day for the rest of your life? This is a very big decision. There's going to be things that you have to do that aren't fun. And I went into those things because I wanted him to understand. He said, absolutely. And I said, we're going to do this. So he's been doing MRI now he went through an MRI program. He's been doing MRI for a couple years. The first time he had to do something that was one of the things I warned him about, he said, I had to do this. I said, well, do you still love it? He said, I love it. That's all I could ever want. Do you know, were you able to identify some things to stop, start, and continue your own mission? And do you know your vision? One of the ladies I work with, she has her mission statement, her own personal one, like on like a plaque in her office, because she wants to stay focused on her goals. I respect that. And does your own vision and mission align with your organization's mission and vision? If you're working in an organization that's helping people, it probably does. And what I want you to know, everyone in this room, is that what you do is important. What you do is important. Your contributions are important. Everyone's contributions are important. Yeah, everyone's contributions are important. The person that's cleaning your facility at your hospital or at your imaging center, the people that are checking people in, absolutely everyone's important. We can't do this job without all of the players. It takes everyone's individual contributions to achieve our common goals. That's what I'm talking about. So everybody's important. Every contribution, we need it to achieve those common goals for patients being served. We're all part of something bigger. I think as I get older, I realize that you stop thinking about yourself so much and you start thinking about what is the big picture. You matter. Thank you for what you do. I appreciate you. Healthcare needs you, and humanity needs you. And if you are at any point ever feeling hopeless, I just don't want you to forget how important you are to humanity and how important you are to so many people that I'm sure love you. And we are right at 2:54. I want to thank you guys for staying throughout the whole conference and coming to like one of the last sessions. I appreciate you guys coming to my session so much. If you have any questions or want to contact me, that's my contact information. But everything we talked about, there are white papers on everything we talked about. Certainly check that out. And do you guys have any questions for me? Yes, ma'am.